Welcome to another episode of the Sacred Roots podcast. So today I have the beautiful and inspiring guest, Erin Busbee, with me. Welcome, Erin.
Thanks so much, Ellie, for having me. I'm really excited to be here and talk to you and your listeners. I love what you're doing, and I love how you are empowering women in such a deep, profound, and unique way, and
Mm,
embracing
thank
that
you.
feminine energy. Yeah, you're amazing.
Thank you so much for saying that. I fully receive this.
Mhm.
So I really see you, Erin, as the fashion icon, the style expert for women over 40, but maybe you can introduce yourself in your own words to our listeners.
Sure. So for the last 8 years, wow, that's incredible. I have been providing fashion and beauty ideas for busy women juggling life over 40. And it's my business started when I was just about to turn 40. And I realized that I had kind of unique needs and that those needs were not being met in this sort of blogosphere. And so that's when I started my blog full time. Before that, I had styled women one on one in their closets and helped them
Mm,
style their wardrobes and edit their closets. And so this felt like a natural progression and a way for me to reach more women, empower more women. So I started providing style and beauty tips online.
nice. What were you doing before?
Before that, I was working in television news as a producer and reporter, which is
Okay.
quite a shift. But in news, I covered a lot of the fashion, beauty, and entertainment news. So I always knew that this was a passion. I just honestly didn't know that I could make a career out of it. I used to joke like, I wish I could just shop for a living. And yeah, and I thought, that's not a real job. That's not a thing. And when I was starting out, it really wasn't a thing. This is a really new space, a new industry, and it evolved and into this thing that it is today, so that I can have this really thriving business and an amazing community of women over 40. And we are about, if you add up all of the platforms and the email list, we're at about 1 million right now.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And so that's in what, 5, 6 years?
No, that's been over 8 years.
8 years. Okay, a little bit more.
Mhm.
And so what was then the tipping point for you where you realized, okay, this is my passion. And actually, I could absolutely make a business out of it.
Well, when my husband looked at me and he said, "What would you do for free?"
Mm, that's
And
such a powerful question.
and this was when we had just moved to Texas. I really didn't want to get back into television news, and I said, "I really want to help women look pretty." Which sounds so silly, but it's really not. And I think it's a very powerful tool that we have in our toolbox.
Oh, yeah.
So that was really my passion from day one. It was always to help women with their style and their beauty. And I think over the years, as I've evolved, the business has evolved. So now I can incorporate more spirituality. I talk about manifestation. I talk about healing trauma. I talk about fitness. I talk about menopause, travel, just anything as it pertains to a woman's needs over 40.
Mm. And it is actually very, very spiritual to take care of your beauty because when you take care of your body, of your sacred temple, suddenly you start to remember your power. You remember your inner beauty and you start to express it. And really, fashion and beauty is just an artistic expression of who you are on the inside. And so, yeah, it might look like, oh, it's a bit silly to help women feel beautiful, but actually, I think it's such an important empowerment and spiritual tool to really step in your power, in your genius, express yourself. And I'm sure that you see women shift when you help them, when you go through their wardrobe and suddenly they have the perfect dress that's the perfect color for their skin and the perfect shape for their body. It's like, wow.
I have a folder in my inbox that is full of testimonials from women who have said, "You've changed my life. I have an extra spring in my step. I have so much more confidence. I'm doing better in the office. My
Mm.
husband's been complimenting me more, things
Ah,
like that. And whenever I'm having a day where I'm like, why am I doing this again? It's a dark path and it's lonely and it's hard sometimes to be an entrepreneur. Whenever I have a day like that, I go back to that folder in my inbox and I just read through those emails, and I'm instantly reminded of why. That's my
yeah,
why.
you come back to your why.
Hmm.
So, what is your vision then for like, where do you see Busby Style in 10 years?
I do have a vision. I really want to continue to grow the community and providing amazing content that really is transformative for women over 40. My next phase is to develop product. So I'm in the early stages of developing product, which I started a year and a half ago, but we had a
You
little bit
wanted
of.
to do skincare products, right?
No, I actually am starting with handbags.
Okay.
Yeah, I was a huge Henry Bendel fan, and I don't know if you're familiar with that brand, but it was around for something like 130 years. But they closed down, and when they closed down, I was really upset. I was their number one fan and brand ambassador. I worked with them every month. And so it's about 6 months afterwards, it hit me like I can create the bags that I love. And
Mm,
so when my family was in Spain recently, I traveled down to this town in southern Spain in what they call the White Villages. Beautiful part of southern Spain, just like the hillsides dotted with olive trees and
what
orange
town is it?
groves. Pardon?
What town is it?
Oh, it's called Ubrique.
Okay.
Ubrique. Hmm. And so I met with a manufacturer there, and so we're in the preliminary stages of getting costing together and prototypes done. And so hopefully by fall we can launch some products. That
Ooh, that's exciting.
Yeah, it's really exciting. And I think at the beginning, I had this idea that this was going to be the big thing that could really grow and expand my business. But I've really dialed back on that because I think it was putting too much pressure on the project. And then in in that, kind of zapping the joy from it.
Yeah.
So now I'm just looking at it as this is another bucket in the business. And if it does well, amazing. And if it doesn't do well, I have this other whole very robust, amazing business going, and I can continue on with that. So I think shifting my energy and my mindset with this project has helped me so much to just bring the joy back to the project.
Mm. I love that you explained that because it's exactly what I teach my clients. And in my words, I would describe that as detachment.
Mm,
Because when
hmm.
you're too attached to a project, it's like you're so tight, you're really holding the energy channel tight. So the energy cannot go through and reach its destination. Whereas if you're detached, you're allowing the energy to flow naturally, you're allowing the project to unfold, and then happens what has to happen. And usually it's better than we could ever imagine.
Exactly.
So that's a beautiful example.
Mhm.
So you just shared with us that you went to Spain and went to see that manufacturer for your handbags. Tell us more about these I think you were 6 months in Europe, right?
Yes. So this was like when Europe was still closed. So let's think back to the time when COVID was still going strong and literally Europe was shut down for tourism.
Mhm.
I did this course about manifestation and I was creating a vision board, and I just put it out there that I want to live in Spain. I want to live in Spain. And the reason I was thinking Spain is because I really wanted my children to kind of solidify their Spanish or get a stronger command of the language.
Mm.
And I just think that Europe is incredible and beautiful and special. And I wanted to have that experience for myself, but also for my family and my kids. So I just put that out there into the universe. And I mean, months later, my husband and I had a conversation, and he said, I'm totally for this plan. Let's do it. We were building a house and we didn't have a place to live. And we were looking at renting another place in our town, but our town is really expensive. And so rentals were, I mean, it's so expensive. It's kind of embarrassing, but the rentals were like 20,000 plus per month. And
Okay.
so we both thought, well, we can stay here and spend an egregious amount of money renting a house, or we can travel through Europe and actually save money. So it felt like a no-brainer. And then Europe just magically opened right around the time we needed to leave. And so we went over there. We didn't have a plan. We didn't have a place to live. We didn't know, the only thing we knew for sure was that we were going to get our dog there. And so we had that kind of figured out. But when we
Mhm.
got there, we hired a consultant to help us find an apartment. We hired another consultant to help us find a school. And
Mhm.
and once we had those two pieces in place, the rest was fairly straightforward and simple. Um, and then obviously you have a visa situation. So we hired an attorney to help us secure a visa. But it looks like Spain may open up for digital nomads, where digital
Mm.
nomads can just stay longer periods of time. If they do that, then you wouldn't have to worry about the visa situation.
Yeah, I think the world, there are already so many digital nomads in Thailand and in Bali, and now the Western world is also realizing that they could definitely do that more because people, especially now with COVID, everyone's working from home. So you can
Exactly.
just work from whatever place you want to. You can travel so much more. I love that.
Mhm.
And so how is that for you to be abroad but still have your business in the US and to manage everything and want to make the most out of Europe but still have to work? How did you juggle all that?
In the beginning, it was really rough, and I really struggled with allowing myself to feel how difficult the transition was because I did not speak a word of Spanish.
Mm.
And I didn't know where, you just, there's all these things you take for granted. Like you want to get ham in the grocery store or turkey in the grocery store. Well, now I have to convert, pounds to kilograms, and then I have to figure out how to say that in Spanish.
Come
So I've
on.
so I've got like, Google Translate out in the grocery store, and, like sweating, and just a lot of those moments in the beginning. And I was still trying to go on all cylinders with my business, and I was building a house and making all these decisions on the house and having Zoom calls weekly about the house and trying to get, help my kids through this transition and help my husband through the transition. And basically I imploded, like full disclosure, complete implosion. I was walking to a Spanish class and I just started hyperventilating, crying on the street. And I was with my husband and he gave me a hug and he's like, I'm so sorry. It's going to be okay. And then I went into class because I had booked a class and I was telling the teacher in really bad Spanglish what was going on. And couldn't stop crying, just crying, 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 and realized in that moment, like, you've been in this place before, not exactly like this, but you've been here before. You recognize this. This is complete and utter overwhelm, and you need to give yourself some grace, and you need to stop doing so much. So I think I was in it very much in the masculine and not really embracing the feminine enough. And I decided after that day that I wasn't ever going to get to that place again.
Mm.
And the beauty that came from that sort of breakdown was incredible. I told my team, I said, I'm taking a month off. I'm totally unavailable unless it's an emergency. This isn't rocket science. We're not performing surgery. I can step away for a month. And I also decided that I was going to be more present, enjoy the experience more, enjoy the travel more. And as a result of that, not only was I less anxious and less just over, nervous energy all the time, I felt more relaxed, more at peace. My team felt empowered, made more decisions, has stepped up in ways I couldn't have even imagined. They just did it. And by me stepping away, I gave them that opportunity to really step into their power. And
Awesome.
so all around, it just was really this beautiful experience and moment and shift for me.
Beautiful. And then I guess that also changed the way you came back to then, okay, now I'm back being the CEO of this business and taking the lead. But still, I've seen that you guys could do it. So I guess that the balance now is different than what it was before as well.
Definitely. And I think that in addition to the team members knowing they can make decisions on their own and feel empowered to do that, we got really clear about who is doing what and also really clear about what the next best hires are so that I can lighten them up so that they can feel that they are really in their zone of genius. So I totally geek out over like org charts, like, where you figure out who's doing what and who's overseeing who and who's partnered with who. And anyway, I kind of geek out about stuff like that, but I can now see our next three hires very clearly. And I can also see where existing team members, they're really spending, let's say, 60% of their time in their zone of genius in that area that really lights them up.
Mm. You've become
And
a resources manager.
I've become much more efficient. I've become much more detached, going back to your detachment
Yeah.
from the day to day. We were on a call yesterday. We do a team call every Monday, and they were, one of the team members said, "Oh, well, so and so has already been writing beauty posts for us." And I was like, "Oh, okay." Like I did not even know that writer was writing beauty posts. I hadn't
Mm.
seen the beauty posts. I didn't edit the beauty posts. Like we have team members to do that.
Mhm. Yeah, and sometimes your business becomes so big that if you're still trying to control everything and have a hand on everything, it becomes, like you said, way too overwhelming and stressful for you.
Mhm.
And I think you really also became an expert at surrendering with all that and trusting, which then allowed your team to really be empowered. So that's really, really beautiful. You shared with me also before we recorded this podcast episode that you stepping back and being more in your feminine also transformed into your business being the biggest year ever financially.
Mhm. Yes. So
Be more about that.
yeah, from 2019 to 2020, we didn't grow at all. The top line was about the same and the bottom line was about the same. And I think that's pretty understandable given the whole 2020 situation. But I know a lot of online entrepreneurs who did grow in 2020. So in 2021, the really fascinating thing is I was gone either on a road trip. I took a 2-month road trip with my family and then 6 months in Europe. I was gone for 8 months and had the best year ever, up 30% from 2020. 30%.
How do you explain that?
I know it's a thing, but it's really hard to wrap your head around. And you and I, are in a shared group with Kosi, the Royal Shamans, and she talks about this quite a bit. But the more you play, the more fun you have, the more you're in your joy, you're stepping into your power and you're having fun. I think the better you do. And that doesn't seem natural or right based on everything that we've learned. But that's really what happened. And I
Mm.
can't tell you why. I can't explain it. But that's really what happened.
Mm.
I had a year of transformation emotionally um and I think that's a direct correlation.
Mm. I love that. You're such a beautiful example of the principles that I also teach to my clients, and then Makosi also talks about. I love to explain it in words of energy because
Mm,
we are all
mhm,
energy and we're all connected. And the world is just an energetical match because the world is there to show you what is happening inside. So if inside you're having fun, you're playing, you're experiencing abundance with your family, abundance of love, abundance of play, abundance of creativity, abundance of space, then the world is going to mirror that back to you because the world is just we are souls just on a human experience to grow and expand. And how do we learn? Through what life is showing us. So life is just a mirror of who we are inside. And so that is like the energetical explanation that I could give. But I love, because you are such a perfect example. You know, sometimes people teach and say things, but it's great to have beautiful examples that illustrate that. So what are like the activities that you go to when you feel that you've been too much in your masculine, doing too much, structuring too much, and you want to go back to that playfulness and that receiving energy? What do you do?
You know, one of the things that I've really been exploring a lot in the last few years is releasing trauma. So I had a lot of childhood trauma, and I knew that I was carrying around a lot of that, and that I knew if I could release that, I would feel so much more light and free. So, over the last few years, I've turned to a lot of different healing modalities that are non traditional, which I'm sure your viewers will, or your listeners will appreciate. Um,
Mhm.
Things like hypnosis and breath work and EMDR and
Mm.
tapping and meditation, anything and everything that I've been able to do that can help with that trauma release, and also just calming down, because I'm somebody that's always had a lot of anxiety. And so if I start to feel that anxiety creeping up, I can turn to, deep breath in for 4, hold for 4, out for 4. I can turn to the EFT, the tapping that can work really quickly. I now have virtual EMDR on my computer. I can turn to that if I need to, if I feel like something's not quite right. I did a beautiful hypnosis session the other day that was so powerful. Um, I was crying and crying and crying about something that I thought I'd already worked through, but hadn't. And I had a sign that I hadn't, which is a really cool story. Um, but anyway, so anything, um, I feel like those healing modalities are so powerful and often not talked enough. They're not talked about enough. And that's something I'm really passionate about too. And longer term, I'm not sure what form and shape it's going to take, Ellie, but I'd really love to find a way to be a connector for people like you who are healers, and connect women in a grand scale, a large community of women, connect them to healers who can help them release their trauma. Because I
Mm.
feel so strongly that trauma is the root of a lot of issues, and the thing weighing women down from really feeling that ultimate freedom, lightness, and joy.
It's so true. I also think that some of our traumas are our gifts, because
Definitely. Definitely.
in my first book, I actually created a method to help women heal from trauma through the power of self-love. It's called the self-healing spiral. Maybe I should send you a copy. It could be interesting for you to read it. You've done
Yes.
all the work and you probably know all these things. But in my own experience, I really realized that all the traumas that I went through were experiences, no more opportunities for me to learn to love myself more, to
Mhm.
come back to my oneness,
Mhm.
to my authentic self. And again, when you take a step back and you zoom out and you think of what is life about,
Mhm.
life really is about loving ourselves and
Mm.
then loving others and spreading that love. And
Mm.
so, how do you learn to love yourself? Well, through the separation that you've experienced, because trauma is separation.
Mhm.
And so, you're going through that separation, you're struggling, and then you're learning to come back to yourself so that you can also reconnect with others.
Mhm.
And I think like you're so right that when we dare to go and look inside, to go into our feminine energy, to heal ourselves, because feminine energy is all about honoring and embracing your emotions and your inner world. Um, it has such a big impact on our outer world and how we feel, and we can experience way more joy and playfulness when we are actually on that path. And so it's so beautiful that you're explaining that in your own words and wanting to help more women with that, because it's definitely part of the things that I'm here to do as well.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so beautiful to see women heal and bloom and suddenly really
Mm-hmm.
shine their lights. So on that same, path of like talking about traumas and everything, what are parts of the beliefs that you had to shed in
Mm-hmm.
order to be where you are today, multiple seven-figure business owner?
Not multiple, just one.
Okay.
um, well, a lot of things. I mean, I want to just go back to the the conversation we were just having about trauma for a minute, because one of the key things is that I didn't realize the heaviness that the trauma that I didn't realize the weight that the trauma had. I
Mm,
didn't realize how much it was still weighing me down. I really felt healthy and I was doing great and everything, all the boxes were checked, right? Anybody from the outside looking in would think, oh, she's doing great. And I didn't realize the depth and the extent of that trauma until I started really releasing it.
mhm.
And I now can see the difference on the other side, the Erin before and the Erin after. And people may not notice changes about me specifically from, people that don't know me that well, but the changes for me, the shifts for me have been monumental. Monumental.
What are some of these shifts?
So one example would be when I was younger, I used to love to do kind of crazy things. Like I really love to do, like when I was working in news, I would do these live shots where I was doing stunts live on live television, like sliding 20 feet on a tarp in the rain at the baseball stadium, or doing professional wrestling moves live, or just all of these kind of wacky, crazy things. Skydiving and thinking that was the best thing ever. And I had really stopped doing all of that. And I didn't realize, because it happens very slowly, I didn't realize that I had stopped doing those things. You get older, you become a mom, things change. So as I've been healing the trauma, there's been that spark again of, oh, I want to do something a little bit crazy. Like I'm going to go out, and I saw Chelsea Handler skiing in her bikini. I'm like, I'm going to go out and ski in my bikini. Or I'm going to go like jump in the snow in my bikini. Like, why? I don't know. I had these urges again to do
Really?
these kind of crazy things. And that was completely dormant, like gone. And then one of the most profound shifts, and this is a little bit difficult to explain, but I didn't realize I had difficulty helping other people.
Mm.
And let me explain that a little bit. So I can write all the content and do all the things on social media and through my website. But if I met somebody in person and they were in pain, I probably would run.
Mm.
If my husband was like, let's have so and so over for the weekend or the week and entertain them and we love them and let's have them, I would be like, I can't. It would make me too anxious and too nervous because I would have to give. If my aunt was really sick and in the hospital and I happened to be home visiting my family in upstate New York, um and that would have been another situation where I don't really have that much of a relationship with her. I hadn't seen her in like 15 years. I went to the hospital. I held her hand. I was there for her, and it came so naturally, and I could cry thinking about it because I didn't realize that I didn't have that capacity before. And now I look at people and I say, this morning, I said to a friend who is a single mom, and her daughter has a tournament in Santa Fe this weekend and the other daughter's staying home. I said, I'm your standby. if your daughter needs anything, please call me. And I mean it. I mean it deeply. Um,
Mm,
we have a bunch of people coming to visit us and I'm not flinching. I signed up to host a foreign exchange student. What?
that's
What? Ellie, I never would have done that before. Like, who is this person? So
So
I'm
why
really
why do
proud.
you think that was that you weren't able to help people because it was mirroring your own pain, your own trauma to yourself, and that was too much to deal with? Or is it because
I
you
didn't
were
have the space. I didn't have the space. I was carrying around so much trauma. It was so heavy and I was so full. I didn't have the space to give to other people. That it's as simple as that. And by
yeah.
releasing the trauma, I have so much space.
Yeah, it's crazy how much our traumas can just play a big role in the background, like the background noise, the noise of the fridge that's always there, but we're
Mm-hmm.
not doing it. And suddenly the fridge stops and we're like, it's so much better without that noise.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's so crazy.
So much better. So much better. Life
And
changing.
so are you then like on a constant journey of trying to look at more dust that could be staying from your past, I mean, past life, childhood, or things like that you could be releasing? Is that something regular that you're doing, or now you feel like you've let go of a lot of
Oh
things?
no, I feel like we're sculptures that are always in progress. And so I'm always looking and searching and seeking, and it lights me up. I love it. And I really want to find a way to bring more of this side of me into my business because I do feel as though, the inside and the outside are so closely connected. And I just want other women to experience what I've experienced and the freedom that comes with that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm. And so you've done the healing work, you've let go of beliefs. What are other big pillars you think that you had to work through that allowed you to be the successful entrepreneur that you are today?
Well, you have to learn about business, which is something I knew pretty much nothing about when I started. I was a journalist, I wasn't an entrepreneur. So I've taken, I don't know how many classes, and I've been involved in year long, entrepreneurial business training programs to really understand how to run a business.
Mhm.
And I'm also super fascinated by that. I mean, I could do a deep dive there, but um, just things like in the beginning, I just don't like spreadsheets. Like if I see a spreadsheet, I glaze over. And that's always been a source of, or that used to be a source of difficulty for me. And I think it was around probably money issues and money mindset issues. But one of the first hires I made was hiring an accountant to help me with my books.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then one of the second hires was a virtual CFO.
Mhm.
And in the beginning, those hires felt scary and strange because you're letting someone into your business that's, in my case, was a hot mess. And you're saying, okay, I want you to clean up this hot mess
Yeah.
the best that you can. But it does feel very like you're very exposed. Um, and so, learning about the things that you can outsource, what that looks like, how to do that, that's really important too on an entrepreneurial journey. I think the spiritual healing side is very important, but you also have to have some business acumen.
Yeah.
Because for me, from day one, it's always been a business. I've always known that it was a business. So I know some people start out and it's a hobby and they just dabble here and there. I really started out as this is my passion, but it's also going to be my business.
Yeah. Yeah. It's going to help others. You were saying, you had some money mindset issues, etc. What are some of the money beliefs that you had that you really had to let go of in order to be where you are?
I know it's the opposite of you because I know you grew up quite wealthy, but I grew up really poor, one of 4 kids, single mom. She was a nurse and she worked all the time. So, we were the free lunch kids and we were the kids that couldn't get the nice clothes, the nice cleats for
Mm.
soccer or, go to the camps or travel. Um, and so I had a lot of issues around worthiness. Why do I deserve to have money? Do I deserve to have money? Will that alienate me and separate me from my family
Mhm.
who's, who doesn't have a lot of money?
Yes,
Um,
we're beings
yeah.
of connection, especially as women. All we want is, again, that oneness, that connection with others. And so money sometimes can create that separation.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting because, like you said, I grew up surrounded by a lot of money and wealth, but I feel that the scarcity mindset still is very present in these environments,
Mm-hmm.
which you wouldn't think. Because you're like, why would you still be afraid that there's not enough? Because there is more than enough around you. But our minds can really set us up for seeing the reality in a way that it not doesn't really is, which I guess is always what beliefs do, right? You're seeing things in a way that is very limiting and not especially the truth.
But I
Uh,
understand that though, because my husband still will say, we don't have enough in the bank. And I'm like,
mm,
you told me that when we got to this number, that would be enough.
mm,
And so I understand what you're saying as I see it in him, where we have plenty and he still feels like we don't.
yeah. I always tell my clients the way, if you think that a certain amount is going to make you feel safe, we have a tendency to believe that you are actually lying to yourself because the way you're going to feel when you get there is the way you will have felt all along the way. So it is so important to really focus on the journey rather than thinking, oh, once I'm going to be there, I'm going to be happy and safe and everything's going to be fine. No, feel fine now. Otherwise, you're still going to feel messy and worried and anxious once you're
That
there.
is
And that's
that
a
is
shame.
so true. I feel as though I used to have that as well, and I would call it perpetual dissatisfaction.
Mm, yeah.
It's never enough. It's never enough. You're always going, you're always going, you're always striving. And then get to the goal. Oh, that's great. And then move on and move on to the next goal. But in the last few years, as I've gotten healthier and kind of reprogramming everything, I've realized, oh no, you need to celebrate each moment. You need to be in the now, be in the present moment, enjoying it now. Um, that's just such a beautiful point.
Yeah, so important. One last question for you, Erin. If you had to give one advice to that beautiful journalist that you was and that you were, sorry, and you had big dreams for your business, what would that advice be?
I saw this in a blog post once, and it was an acronym CTFD, and
Mhm.
it is calm the F down. I would say, listen, you need a CTFD, my friend. You're way too wound up. And then I'd give her a big hug and say, it's going to be okay. You're going to be okay.
Yeah, believe in yourself. You're going to be
Mhm.
awesome. Beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom, your expertise, your experience with us. That was so much fun to have you on the podcast
Oh,
and
thank
get
you
a
so
little bit
much.
more of an insight into your life, your business. And welcome back to North America, I guess.
Thank you so much, Ellie. It's been really fun chatting with you. I could chat with you for a few hours.
Yeah, I'm sure. But we all have to respect the time of your time first, time of our listeners. So thank you so much, and I'll see you very soon.
Okay, bye bye.
Bye.